Hey, it's Patrick McMullen, and welcome back to the Break Time University podcast. This is episode 69, and we welcome back the infamous Alan Schaefer. Alan's here to talk about picking yourself up when you get knocked down and a song that you'll never forget. So listen in and enjoy. Good afternoon, it's Patrick McMullen, and we are back for the next episode of Break Time University, and we're joined again by the infamous Alan Schaefer, banding people together.
Break time.
And Alan, you just said it when we were getting prepped for this. You had a show on this weekend. You crushed it. You even used the term "murdered it."
Yeah, I seriously, I need bail money. We were good. I'd say that modestly. Yeah.
Why was it so good?
Well, I'll tell you why it was so good. Thank you for asking. First of all, what makes me the happiest is that it was the best that we've been so far. So that's the first piece. We overcame a lot of obstacles. I'd had COVID, so I only had one rehearsal with the band. We had 5 new songs that we added. We went from doing 2 set lists to 1 longer set because people leave when you take a break.
Sure.
Right. And the other thing was, I said to the guys, I said, I feel like we were a little bar bandish on a couple of them. And I think we're better than that. And they said, yeah. And we just focused and really, we did well and we executed. And it's so funny. And the other thing was, and this is so interesting, everybody who could get together to rehearsed in different versions, even when I wasn't there or when our bass player was in Boston for 3 days. And so everybody put in the work, and then it all kind of collapsed into place, and it was just very, very satisfying. It was good.
I bet that's fun. And I was thinking about this, and so I've got a question for you. I told you I got a couple sneaky ones here. So, I think back to my time going out and watching bands, and it's been a little while since I've gone to one, but I grew up in Minnesota where we had what was called Riverfest. And while I went to many concerts, I think the most memorable ones were what's called Riverfest, which is across from downtown St. Paul, Minnesota, obviously right on the riverfront. And I worked at a hotel in college, and one time I'm up on the top floor and come out of the elevator. There's Richard Marx.
Oh, wow.
And Richard was one of the headline acts, and ultimately I recognized him. I don't know what the hell I said to him, and he ended up getting us upgraded seats. We were planning on going, and
that's awesome.
It just memorable place to go. And I think back to the good times of different concerts that I've been to. So the question's about a venue. You just talked about bars and playing in a club, and you play a lot of different places all over the globe. What would be your favorite? What do you like to play? You've done it all. So tell us about that.
I have a couple answers. So my favorite venue, I think, was probably the Tabernacle in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay.
It's just a vibey place, and played there a few times, and that was really cool. Playing the Fox Theater though in Atlanta also was just like, it's crazy to stand in a spot where every rock and roll legend that there's ever been that mattered has stood in that same spot. So that was a real bug out. But probably one of the most interesting was playing the Bonhomme Richard, which was an aircraft carrier that unfortunately burned here in San Diego. But playing 76 miles out in the Persian Gulf, and like big American flag behind our stage, and stage diving, and flying in a chopper onto the aircraft carrier and being met by everyone on the flight deck. It's pretty cool.
That sounds like an amazing experience. But you answered one of the things is I wanted to know, and I'm thinking of Alan and stage surfing, just launched yourself into the crowd. You did that on the aircraft carrier?
Oh yeah.
No, you ever?
Yeah.
If they didn't
Crowds.
like it, could they just throw you off the side and you'd be
I
fishing,
mean, it's a calculated risk.
right?
You survey the crowd and you go, can they handle it? And I'm not a real big guy, so it's like as long as there's, very rarely do people move away from the band
Right.
when someone from the band does it. So
That's amazing. So, would you have a preference then, if you think about as I described the River Fest? Would do you ever play at any outdoor events like that other
oh
than
man, we played Summerfest in Milwaukee. We played Taste of Chicago and whatever the big park is in Chicago. Played Music Midtown multiple times in Atlanta, which was a huge festival. We played festivals all over the place.
Milwaukee? I may have been there. My wife and I went see one of my best friends in life, and as young, we were both all just recently married in Racine, Wisconsin. Scott and KP, and then we went up to Milwaukee, and there was a summer fest. That was back, gosh, that would have been the mid '90s,
Yeah,
and right there on the lakefront on Lake Michigan in Milwaukee. What a lot of fun that was!
good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So you played some great places. I would imagine though you've played a place to say that place an absolute dump. I'll never go back there. Maybe you don't want to name the place, but the city or why was it that bad?
I remember one time pulling up in Augusta, Georgia, and it wasn't bad, but I just remember I saw this like shack, and I'm like, and I remember saying to the guys, we're in a van and we're like at a traffic, intersection, and we see this what looks like not a great building, and we're like, can you imagine if that's where we're playing? And we turned and we're like, oh my God, that's where we're playing. And yeah, we played a lot of dives. I don't know that I have like a worse place, but yeah, we played some sketchy places.
Well, the Masters just finished, and I've been blessed to have gone to the Masters three times. And Augusta, while the course is extraordinary and there are some beautiful houses around it, there's also some parts that maybe aren't the vision of what someone may think Augusta to be. And it sounds
Oh
like you
yeah.
found one.
Yeah, we used to play a place in Birmingham called the Nick, which was an old 7-Eleven that had been converted into a music venue, and it was in a horrible neighborhood. And I remember like the second time ever playing there, we're just standing outside, and a guy comes running through, and like 5 minutes later, the cops come up like, and it was literally like, oh yeah, he went that way, you know. And the address was 665 and a half. They called it the neighbor of the beast.
Wow. Sounded like it was.
Yeah, it was a pretty
So
interesting spot.
So, you talked about your favorite venues, at least, but I would also imagine that you've gone to concerts. I mean, it's one thing for you to play one, but
Oh
you've
yeah.
attended one. Tell me some of your favorite ones and where were they and favorite place to maybe go watch one.
Ooh. Um, you know, watching a show at the Fox is pretty amazing. Um, I've seen too many to comment on. I mean, the second show that I ever went to was The Who in the Tangerine Bowl. And I was a kid and I was like, wow, there's 70,000 people screaming and The Who playing and Joan Jett and the B-52s, and that was pretty cool. Um, I was a big Van Halen fan. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen everybody. I've seen,
Yeah.
I've I don't even know how to answer that question if I have a favorite show or favorite venue. I can tell you the one place that I've never been that's on my list is Red Rocks.
Okay.
I want to go to Red Rocks and see a show.
What stops you from doing it? I mean,
I don't know what has stopped me. It defies logic that I've not done that. I've also never been to Hawaii and I've never been snow skiing, and that generally surprises people considering all the other stuff that I've done.
well, it comes down to you've done a lot of things, and it's still, folks, if you've not watched previous episodes with Alan, he's taken his love for music and turned it into a career. And his company is called Banding People Together. And he takes, I think maybe it'd be best even for you to describe exactly what you do. And I have some questions as just as I thought about prepping today and what we haven't talked about. But tell everybody, first of all, again, how you shifted that moment when you pivoted from being band rock star to doing what you're doing. And there's also that story. He said, hey, I want to teach people not to be me.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been rewiring for some time. I was pretty hard charging my way or the highway, even with a smile in my band days. I got us from here to here. I kept us here. I earned my former band members, and at the time where the band was sort of everyone was kind of getting to that spot where it's like, okay, I think I'm going to settle down and have kids now, and the life evolving. Um, I was like, well, what am I going to do next? And there was a time where we had been asked as a band to do a team building exercise for Best Buy, because Best Buy was a sponsor of ours, and we were
Mhm.
actually going to go up to Chicago, and they said, well, could you do some kind of team building thing? And we were actually going to teach um, some executives how to write songs, and I was just going to make up a whole curriculum, and that didn't happen. And then we kind of blew that off, and then later, and actually the band was still going strong, and I never thought I would come back to that. And then when the band kind of ran its course, it's like, now what? I learned about this thing called corporate team building, and I thought, I'm going to go into corporate America and teach people how to write songs. And so somebody said to me, well, you're going to need an instructional designer. I'm like, man, what the hell is that? And like someone that's going to put it into a curriculum and this and that. And so I found a instructional designer, and I kind of came up with a curriculum to make it make sense and not just be the band dude showing up for a good time. And that's really how banding started. But it was really all born from me not being a very good leader, not a very good collaborator, and quite frankly, being a bit intense.
Well, I'll tell you that the word intense that you say that it's really I wrote a blog the other day that says you should never apologize for wanting to win as long as you do it right. And
Mm,
unfortunately, there's times in my life where maybe I wanted to win too much. Never with my kids, or certainly not with my grandkids, where you're playing whatever. And but I still come back to is if you're doing it ethically. And you're doing it with something where you have a sense of responsibility, you shouldn't apologize for wanting to win. But if you burn bridges along the way, then probably that's not you are too intense. And
yeah,
I
in the work that we do at banding, we do a lot of alignment work for leadership teams, all kinds of teams. And in my experience, I think what I've come to realize is the what and the why is pretty easy for people to get aligned around. The gloves come off with the how. And everyone's got like a different comfort zone, a different way that they think the goal is going to be achieved. And what we see in our personality data that we look at is, look, there's some people that are, once they figure out what they think is the solution, they're not very open-minded, and they will protect and defend their path or their perceived path to the result. And so, yeah, that's where it gets kind of dicey, which is like, all right, well, how are we going to get from point A to point B? Because everyone's got an opinion on it.
Well, I would imagine in your band days, you played at locations where you thought this crowd just not into it tonight, or they don't like us, or we're not kicking butt. But you probably have had scenarios where you've walked into some companies and some leadership teams, and you knew right away this was going to be one of those types of nights. Yet, I suspect you were successful. Think back to one of those situations. What did you do to disarm everybody? And specifically dig into your expertise in using music. And I love how you said in our last episode that music's a time machine, and you leverage that, and you talked about that
Mhm.
in how you use it. So go into that. Think back to that. You thought this is going to be one of those nights at that horrible club in Augusta, and it turned out to be a win.
Well, I will tell you this. I've shared this with you. I value humility, and so very humbly, what I'm going to offer is, I don't ever expect to walk into any place in corporate America and not do what we're there to do successfully. And I'm going to tell you why. And it's not arrogance. First of all, it's a repetition and data and facts at this point. But even early on, when I wasn't as good or we weren't as good at this at banding, um, there was a disarming part around the music piece, and which music engages the limbic brain and minimizes the skeptic brain, so that's kind of part of it. But the other thing was this: I just knew that I was going to wear people down, and they were going to feel my heart and my soul one way or another, and that I was going to be someone that no matter what they walked away, they were going, man, this guy came in today. He did this weird music and behavioral science thing, but man, did he try hard, and man, did he care about it, and man, he seemed to really believe in what he was, throwing down. And I count on skepticism, and understandably, because a lot of these types of exercises don't really do anything. Wow, man, I took a personality assessment. Look at this. Wow, it got it right. It was so spot on. I'm like, yeah, well, you answered the questions. You put in the input. This is the output. Wow, it's so spot on. Okay, great. So what? What do you do about it? And so we're in the business of the so what part, which is, okay, now you know this. How do you do something different, not 3 months from now, but 3 minutes from now, to make some sort of friction or something that's getting in the way of you being in the groove just disappear? And the thing is, we've done it so many thousands of times. It's like we expect a result when we walk in at this point.
You just drilled something home. I have to tell you, I feel like this is an important intersection of some of the podcasts that we've done. First of all, you expect to win, which I still think some of the most successful people in life, there's just an innate ability that they have the it factor, that they can walk in and regardless of the situation, they get the job done. Break Time U and Break Time TV, we specialize in an area that the average employee visits 650 times a year. And my objective has always been is that, as you just said, something so important. It's not that I'm here today to help you and hopefully you'll apply it in 3 weeks or 3 months. We want someone to watch this during their break and go back to work and apply a lesson now.
Yeah.
And as someone that does what you do, what stops people that they don't apply it right now? And how do you break that down, that they wait 3 weeks or 3 months? That's the average mentality. And what are you doing to break down that barrier?
I have one of my favorite words in the world: belief. And so what stands in the way of someone believing? Someone's got to understand the ask. They got to understand, hey, how am I going to go do something different now so I can get a different outcome when I'm used to getting the same outcome? So like the bias and the judgment and the subjectivity and the feeling and all that really gets in the way. But for those who are truly open-minded, if they can articulate what the issue is or get to a place of connecting the dot for something that I share behaviorally that goes, oh, you know what? I'll give you a great example. Man, here's this person that I work with, and every single time I work with them, we have a meeting, we agree on something, they come back, they surprise the hell out of me, and they haven't done what we agreed on. Okay, well, someone like me comes in and says, well, there's a reason for that. And it's a lack of clarity. Yeah, but what I said and I told them and they agreed. I'm like, that's cool. I said, have you ever, and I'll say to someone, have you ever been in a conversation with anybody, especially with your spouse or your kid or anybody, and go, and you've either heard the words coming at you or you've said the words, I didn't say that. It's the world we live in. Yeah, but that's what I heard.
It's often your intention is one, but your result is another. And unfortunately, so many folks, that you just hit that right there. Lack of clarity and lack of communication causes more damage than we can possibly imagine. And that's, we look at everything that's going on in our world today to just even, I have a question here, and maybe this is even, we'll kind of intermingle if we can here. You probably have some favorite songs that you ever wrote that think of your favorite song that you ever wrote and your band has performed. Just grab that for a second in your head.
Okay.
Okay. What's it about? What inspired you to write that, or what's the story behind it?
Well, the story behind it is, and here's the thing, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to play it because oh wait, I might need a capo. I might have a capo if I have to play it, but it was a song called Luckiest Man.
Okay.
And by the way, this last week it was my father would have been 87, and he was the luckiest man. And we called him the luckiest man because when he had quintuple bypass surgery, he was in the recovery room, and I went in and I said, you know, he was kind of emotional, and he said he grabbed my arm. He didn't have a lot of strength. He grabbed my arm and he said, "I heard a voice." To which I said to the nurse, I'll have what he's having to go. And he said, "I heard a voice." And I said, "Well, did you talk to the voice?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, what'd you say to the voice?" He said, "I asked the voice, why am I so lucky? Why am I still here?" And I just got this visceral reaction. And I
Mm-hmm.
went home and I wrote this song for him called Luckiest Man, you know, literally in 15 or 20 minutes. And that when we recorded that with Five Star Iris, we had like this orchestra. It's called the Nashville String Machine, who played all the strings on all these huge records. And it's my favorite piece of music that I ever had a part of. And also because when my dad would be in the crowd, there was always this moment when, I would always dedicate it to him. He would smile like a proud father would. And at the end of the song, I always pointed at him and he would point at me and I would do this and he would do this. And that was the thing. And I knew one day I'd played at his memorial service and I did. And my brothers were like, and my mother were like, "I don't know how you got up there and held it together to do that." I'm like, I knew one day I was going to do it and I was going to do him proud. So that's my favorite song.
Maybe one of the favorite moments I've ever heard from you in telling your story, because while you have a lot of stories, that one's from the heart. That's
Mhm.
powerful. Thank you for sharing, because
My pleasure.
folks, I have another piece in my own world. My father, speaking of dads, my dad, when we've been on a health journey with my wife for 16 years, 16 years as of Thursday, that our health journey started. And my dad, one time when I was really struggling, depressed, down, just didn't think we could make it all the way back to where not only we've come, but where I can go. But dad said, "Don't let this define you. Let it define you." And that sounds like that was a defining moment for you,
Yeah.
that you faced a life events that none of us want to ever have to deal with, but we will face it with our parents or even ourselves.
All right. So,
You, wow, you made something out of it.
yeah. So here's what I would say. Uh, I don't know that it was my moment to recover from. It was his moment to recover from. But what I will say is this: I believe we are defined by how we recover. And anybody that you see that has um, enjoyed any level of, I'm going to say, optics of success has had to recover. And, you know, um, you know, it's resilience. That's the word in the corporate resilience. Resilience. Or it's grit. I don't know that that's learned. Maybe it's a value. Maybe it's a innate kind of part of one's spirit. But like it's Rocky Balboa. Like, okay, are you going to get back up or not get back up? Like,
Right.
and in many cases, at least for me, I just didn't have a choice. I had to get back up every time that I've had to recover. And recovery from whether it's from health, from losing millions of dollars, whatever it is. I mean, having eviction notices, everything, like everything that leads one to where they are now is, you look back and part of the moral foundation is like, okay, I had to overcome this and that made me stronger. It's the cliche, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. Well, it's true.
I know as we will end that phrase is going to stick with me, because that's my own life story. But it's not about me, it's about telling your journey. But it sounds, that song and that's part of your life obviously means a great deal. And it sounds, in a lot of ways, I think about, as you said, is there's a lot of teams, going back to what you do, they have one setback, they're not able to recover.
Yeah.
There's too many people that are in leadership positions today that a bad hour ruins a day, a bad day ruins a week, and a bad week ruins a career for some folks. They just can't get past that. And you specialize in taking those folks and banding them back together to do that. How do how do you break down? I mean, I've walked away from a banding people together experience. What story am I going to tell? What am I going to say that I walked away from? Is you talked about resilience, you talked about some of these different things, but what am I going to say that you ultimately, when you have won, why?
You know, I think for someone who goes through one of our things, and look, I'm not there to teach resilience or grit or anything of the sort. I'm there to help, or we're there to help, engineer chemistry and get people in the groove and keep them in the groove. And so the biggest aha I think that people have, and I think I've talked about this a little bit on some of our other episodes, when you can get to a different level of objective thinking that says, I'm working with this person who I don't like, they don't like me, or I can't get in the groove, or they piss me off because they do this or they don't do this. When you get to that place of actually understanding the root cause of what doesn't feel good to you, that's a big aha. When you get to the place of the root cause, the next place we help people get to is, oh, by the way, it takes two hands to clap, and here's your role in it. And now that you understand the root cause, you actually have an opportunity, non-dependent on anyone else, that you right now can create a completely different reality of how it feels like to work with so and so or so and so. But it's understanding, and it's us helping people look beyond the friction that's caused by our differences, so that we can actually understand, realize, and leverage, and dare I say, amplify the differences in a way that's synergistic instead of a way that just pisses us off.
Well, unfortunately, is we've been chatting about, some people just can't get past that. They have that bad moment and they're done with whatever it is. And I love the fact that you get through that, and you use music to make that happen. You break down barriers and break down walls and unite people by bringing them back to places. Last episode, or the episode before, you went through that Beatles song, and how people could interpret it, different phrases. You made them write different things, and that's amazing. Do you use that? Is that one of your favorite exercises to break down those barriers?
It really is. It's one of those moments where I just sit there in the room and I watch the people in the room being people in the room, having their holy cow moments of like, oh wow, that explains and what there really is happening is not like, oh, this explains why I don't get along with my boss, or this and that. What they're really going is like, oh my gosh, this is why my kid won't clean the room when I ask him, or this is why, or this is why I'm fighting with my, my spouse over X, or like, that's the aha when they go, man, I'm like, you are pouring gas on a fire you say you don't want, and you don't even know it, and you're standing in the middle of it.
That's that's an eye-opening exercise, and I've thought about that a few times since you went through it with me. And how I even I told you a little bit ago, my grandson is here today. We watch him once a week. He's this joy of our life. my daughter will periodically say, when I would do something like that, you would have done this. But now, as grandparents, we're almost egging it on. And
Oh yeah.
I thought about that when she told us that when she was here they spent Easter
Oh,
Eve here,
let's
and
so seriously, so let's talk about the whole upside of the grandparent thing as a, psychologically speaking, I've thought about this a great deal, which is as a grandparent, for my friends who are grandparents, what they've told me is like, yeah, like you get all the good stuff. Like
mm-hmm.
you're the good cop. So you're like the fun enabler. Plus you get the satisfaction of watching your son or daughter go through the same mind-numbing, let me pull my hair out, struggling, oh my God, the kid is doing this or whatever. And you just get to be the wise person going, yes, I've been there and I've
Yeah,
gotten the t-shirt and now it's your t-shirt. Oh, and by the way, now as much as we loved having it, like, okay, now it's, now we're giving them back. Now we're
yeah.
giving the grandkid back, and man, we get to go have fun time again next week. And that is, yeah, that's a very, very different dynamic.
Well, yeah, you can go into a banding exercise. We would definitely, my daughter would sing one way, we'd sing another, or write the words to another way. But you're 100% accurate. Uh, I think that just the things that we do and get him riled up to just the joy he brings, and yeah, it makes you appreciate the joy a lot more. And that kid can make you laugh and want to sit down and play trucks and do whatever else that it seemed like you were always too busy, or gosh, I got to work in the yard. And reality is we're not raising grass, we're raising kids. And I thoroughly enjoy making sure that my daughter always tries to, and my wonderful son-in-law, I'm blessed with two great son-in-laws that
And
they do. But
and
yeah,
what it also sounds like is, with grandkids, you just get to have fun.
yeah,
And
yeah.
fun is a relative idea. What's fun for one person, what's fun for another person, totally different. But like honestly, at the core of it, there's some level of connecting, like with the childlike essence and spirit, that has been stomped out by the crappy jobs and the bosses I don't like and the people that are this and the bills that I gotta pay and all that. And there's something pure about it, you know?
It just is. And as we start to get to the end of this, I was chatting with Rob Hunter, who and
Yeah.
he's going to have an episode coming up too. And Rob and I were chatting, and the appreciation of taking a vacation. This is totally off key, but one of my questions I was going to ask you, and I'm just going to go with it in this
Yeah.
episode, is, um, I've come to appreciate, and something that I didn't spend a time because I was a hard charger and was growing some pretty big companies and not always taking time off. Here I am, the break time dude, and I wouldn't take a break. Vacations, even if I took one, my mind was still on work. But um, I've got one coming up, leaving on an 8-day cruise, and super excited for it. But we're going to actually record. He's going to send me some questions that I'm going to record from the ship, and then we'll have them all edited and pieced together, and
That's
actually tell
cool.
people take some time off.
Yeah.
But as I was prepping for this, and I thought about that, and I thought about doing this, I thought about one of my most memorable moments, and I have to ask Alan this one. My wife and I were quite young, and we went on a trip without kids, and we were. Let's just put it this way: my Irish in me was coming out, and was having a few cocktails, and we were up dancing with the band, and the singer was, I fed the lead singer a few cocktails, and we got having a great time, and he invited me up on stage to sing a song. Now, I don't know whether I have a good voice or not. I really don't know if I sing very well, but the reality is it ended up being about a 3-song set. He asked me some songs
Wow.
I knew, and we sang them, and my wife will still tell you one of the funniest moments she's ever seen me, that I'm up there and the band just they took and ran with it. And this Bayside bar in Tampa Bay that we were at, they all got into it.
That's awesome.
Fun times. So,
That
did
is
you ever
fun.
invite somebody up on stage? Did you have a good time doing it?
So can I tell you about somebody that I didn't invite up on stage?
Yeah, that's just as well.
Okay. Um, this is important, and this is important to who I am and the work that we do at banding.
Okay.
So imagine this. So this guy, and I have to tell you, I was very hardcore. Anybody that came up on my stage, I
Hmm.
was ready to pulverize. Like I'm like, because usually people were inebriated. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm not gonna be the entertainment for your drunk friends. Screw you. Like I'm not down. And I was pretty black and white and pretty hardcore about it. So we're playing in Biloxi, Mississippi at the Hard Rock, and this guy kind of wanders up on stage. I don't know, gentleman probably in his, I don't know, 50s, early 50s. And I'm like, I'm unsettled. I'm looking at him like I'm ready to call for security. And I look, and I'm about to get pretty nasty about it. And
Hmm.
something came over me. I looked over at him, and when I looked over at him, he was having like, you ever see Shawshank Redemption?
Oh yeah.
He's
Definitely.
having his Andy Dufresne rain falling moment on my stage. And something said to me, man, that guy, whatever he is doing right now, he needs to be doing. And I'm not going to interrupt it. And it was very quick. And so we finished the song, and security came, but they very politely, like, there was no scene. And as I'm watching, people are at first making fun of him, like, look at this drunk fool, right? And that's what also fed some of my angst. But afterwards, we take a break, and I walk up to this woman who was a regular, and she says to me, "That's a real good thing you done for John." And I'm like, "Huh?" I was like, "Oh, you know him?" He's like, "Oh yeah." I go, "Yeah. What the hell was that?" I said, "I gotta tell you, I get pretty nasty when people get on my stage, and in my space. But I don't know. I felt like you need to be there." And she says to me this, and I'm sharing this to say, under the guise of one that studies judgment and bias, that things are not always as they seem.
Hmm.
And there's always a bit more to the story. And she says to me this: tonight is the first night in 10 years that he has left to go out. And I go, whoa. I said, was he like institutionalized? He goes, his wife is an invalid. And every single afternoon when he clocks out wherever he works or evening, he goes and he spends the evening by her side where she doesn't even know he's there.
Hmm.
And I just went, holy crap. I saw this man as some drunk fool interrupting my show.
Hmm.
And boy, was I wrong. And boy, was I glad that I wasn't a jerk or the person that I normally would have been in that situation. And that was one of the coolest experiences I've ever had in the band. I'll never forget it. I mean, I can see him standing there like this, and it was just unbelievable humanity.
Powerful, to say the least. And in this episode, you've had two very powerful, defining moments of I think two of the best since we started this. And this is our fifth episode together, and I love the lessons. And so uh, I'm going to ask you to even prep if you can. I'd love if you could sing a verse or two of the luckiest man. Well, I'm giving my, you kind of get it what you need to. Well, I'm doing my break time minute. But my break time minute, folks, it's pretty straightforward. Is you're defined by how you recover, and I think both in those two instances with Alan's father and that whole just moment where he was helping his dad recover. And I think every time you sang that song and pointed to your heart, you helped him heal just that much more. And that gentleman, John, same thing. You helped him recover for someone that spent 10 years doing such a noble act. And we are defined. And clearly, as you hit that intersection in your life, I think you've recovered even and helped heal a dominant band lead singer by doing what you do today and banding people together and impacting thousands of people in your career as you have. So that's my break time minute. Alan, I'd love you to close it out with however much you want to say.
First time in your life, on the other side of a blue light special, you search the aisles for a sign, bargain of your life, to buy the impossible. There goes the luckiest man alive, he just bought more time, he just bought the future. There goes the luckiest man alive, he just bought more time, hey lucky man, where'd you buy the time? There's a snippet.
That was awesome. So folks, I don't even know that I need to close this one out because I'd be doing us a misjustice, however I want to say it for that one. So that was amazing. And I'll probably just let the whole thing end, Alan, just on that. And edit and just, that was pretty damn good. I loved it. I don't think there's much I'd be doing us a disservice to do anything else. How's that sound?
I'll take it. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Good to see you, break timers.
It is. Break timers, that is Alan Schaefer. Alan, where can they find you?
So bandingpeopletogether.com. Also, I'm on LinkedIn, just Alan, A-L-A-N, Schaefer, S-C-H-A-E-F-E-R. And reach out, say hello, send me a connect request. Let me know that you saw us on break time and show some love. We'll show it back.
That's awesome. So Alan, thanks for being on this episode. It was my favorite one to date.
All right. All right.
Rock on.
Rock on.
We hope you enjoyed this Break Time U podcast. To learn more about Alan Schaefer, visit bandingpeopletogether.com. And to hear more episodes from Alan and all of our guests, visit breaktimeu.com.